Hello, this is Sara from Beames Designs, and I wanted to welcome you to my studio here in Kingston, New York. I create fused glass, Judaica, and jewelry, and I've been doing this as a business for 30 years. My pieces are sold all over the country in craft galleries and Judaica stores, and in a lot of online stores as well. So the process of fusing is really pretty simple. And it dates back to the ancient Egyptians a few millennium ago, and you can see samples of that in the Corning Museum of Glass in Corning, New York. The process itself is basically you take a sheet of glass, you cut it, you put the pieces together, you put them in a kiln, you fire the kiln to approximately 1400 to 1500 degrees depending on how many layers of glass you're firing together. And then you let the glass cool down in a controlled rate until it gets to about 950 degrees, and then you let it soak for an hour. That's called annealing, and that's important because it lets the stress release from the glass. If that stress sets up and it's not released, the piece will fall apart. Usually when you open the kiln it will have cracked, but it could be sitting on a shelf ages later and all of a sudden the stress, it just has to let go and bing, the piece will just pop apart. So anyway, the process, as I say, you cut the glass, you put it in the kiln, you take it out of the kiln, you grind it, because the edges of the glass, what happens is as the glass fires, it's expanding, and then as it contracts, it's forming like little widow peaks, kind of a little rough edge. I call them widow peaks because basically they're going to tear your hands apart when you handle it. So you have to grind that on a diamond wheel to take those edges off, and then wash the piece, and then do your final gluing, put the piece together. Pretty simple so far, right? So what makes it unique though is how you work with the glass. And what I've developed over the years is using a lot of different materials that are compatible with the glass, meaning that they will expand and contract at that same rate as the glass, so it doesn't crack the glass. And some of the stuff that I use, I'll show you. I use glass confetti. So these are paper thin little shards, paper thin shards of glass, right? That I layer onto the glass, and then I put it in the kiln. But let me step back for a moment and just show you. This is the beginning of a frame. So it's clear glass and white glass. I've cut them with a straight edge. I've glued them together. Good, but pretty boring. And I'll just show you, here's a straight edge cutter. It's a circle cutter and a hand cutter. And these tools haven't really changed very much in decades, if not hundreds of years. But getting back to the picture frame, I take that basic frame, I take my confetti, here's some samples of that paper thin confetti, and I layer it onto the piece, and then it goes in the kiln and these pieces all fire together. And what I mean by putting together at the end is it ground and wash, and I add the clear glass, and I add the frame backing, so that's all the steps at the end part. Another process I like to work with, this is frit, which is finely ground glass. This is enamel, which is also glass. It's basically silica with oxides mixed for different colors. I also use mica. This is gold mica, copper mica, and I sift these on to the glass. Again, these are really, very fine powder. And I always wear, don't worry, I always wear a respirator when I'm using these materials in the studio. Another thing that I can work with is silver leaf. And I take literally these thin bits of silver leaf and tear them up and put them between layers of glass. And when they come out of the kiln, it looks something like this. And then I cut those pieces into little pieces, and I grind the edges on a diamond wheel and fire them again, and then they become jewelry. Another process with the frit, I can layer it up, and when it comes out of the kiln, I create a sheet of glass. Sorry, I don't have a full sheet to show you, but then I slice up the sheet. And I also have been working with laser cut wood. So I then put this behind the laser cut wood to create a mezuzah. With the enamels will fire into the glass, but the mica won't. So the mica has to be trapped behind another layer of glass. So this is an example. This is, I call it a standalone. It's a little freestanding plaque. It has a home blessing on it. And another example of the gold mica is this menorah. And this menorah then is basically, it started as flat glass. It has this gold mica, which was painted on, but there's another layer of glass over it, and then there's more layers, little bits of glass on top of that, and then dichroic glass, which is this super luminescent colored glass that was actually created by NASA for the space shuttle, if you can believe it. But a bunch of glass artists discovered it in the 80s and 90s and went to town with it. So something like that I can use also in other, this is a menorah that, again, this hasn't been fired. So this is just, everything's been glued together. And with what I like to say, my special fusing glue, you put it together, you let it sit so that you can pick it up and put it over a mold in the kiln. And when it fires, sorry I don't have a sample of the white one, but here it is in a different colored glass. So it's been fired over a mold, and it has that super luminescent dichroic glass in it. So that's just some samples of my work and how I work. And I thank you for visiting my studio, and if I can ever answer any questions, just let me know. If you'd like to see my work online, it's www.beames.com. So again, thanks so much for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.